verse. A covenant friendship in God's name. David got out of Naioth and Ramah alive and went to Jonathan. What do I do now? What wrong have I inflicted on your father that makes him so determined to kill me? Nothing, said Jonathan. You've done nothing wrong and you're not going to die. Really, you're not. My father tells me everything. He does nothing, whether big or little, without confiding in me. So why would he do this behind my back? It can't be. But David said, your father knows that we are best of friends. So he says to himself, Jonathan must know nothing of this. If he does, he'll side with David, but it's true. As sure as God lives and as sure as you're alive before me right now, he's determined to kill me. Jonathan said, tell me what you have in mind. I'll do anything for you. David said, tomorrow marks the new moon. I'm scheduled to eat dinner with the king. Instead, I'll go hide in the field until the evening of the third. If your father misses me, say, David asked if he could run down to Bethlehem, his hometown, for an anniversary reunion and worship with his family. If he says good, then I'm safe. But if he gets angry, you know for sure that he's made up his mind to kill me. All stick with me in this. You've entered into a covenant of God with me. Remember, if I'm in the wrong, go ahead and kill me yourself. Why bother giving me up to your father? Never, exclaimed Jonathan. I never do that. If I get the slightest hint that my father is fixated on killing you, I'll tell you. David asked, and whom will you go get to tell me if your father comes back with a harsh answer? Come outside, said Jonathan. Let's go to the field. When the two of them were out in the field, Jonathan says, God of Israel, as God, the God of Israel is my witness, by this time tomorrow I'll get it out of my father how he feels about you. Then I'll let you know what I learned. My God, do the worst to me if I let you down. If my father still intends to kill you, I'll tell you and get you out of here in one piece. And God be with you as he's been with my father. If I make it through this alive, continue to be my covenant friend. And if I die, keep the covenant friendship with my family forever. And when God finally rids the earth of David's enemies, stay loyal to Jonathan. Jonathan repeated his pledge of love and friendship for David. He loved David more than his own soul. Jonathan then laid out his plan. Tomorrow is the new moon, and you'll be missed when you don't show up for dinner. On the third day, when they've quit expecting you, come to the place where you hid before and wait beside that big boulder. I'll shoot 3 arrows in the direction of the boulder, then I'll send off my servant. Go find the arrows. If I yell after the servant, the arrows are on this side, retrieve them. That's a signal that you can return safely, as God lives, not a thing to fear. But if I yell, the arrows are farther out, then run for it. God wants you out of here. Regarding all the things we've discussed, remember that God is in on this with us to the very end. David hid in the field. On the holiday of the new moon, the king came to the table to eat. He sat where he always sat, the place against the wall, with Jonathan across the table and Abner at Saul's side. But David's seat was empty. Saul didn't mention it at the time, thinking something's happened that's made him unclean. That's it. He's probably unclean for the holy meal. But the day after the new moon, day 2 of the holiday, David's seat was still empty. Saul asked Jonathan, his son, so where's that son of Jesse? He hasn't eaten with us either yesterday or today. Jonathan said, David asked my special permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, give me leave to attend a family reunion back home. That's a lie. Y'all gonna sit there and lie. Lied to the king. My brothers have ordered me to be there. If it seems all right to you, let me go and see my brothers. That's why he's not here at the king's table. Saul exploded in anger at Jonathan. You son of a slut. Wow. Harsh words. Don't you think I know that you're in cahoots with the son of Jesse, disgracing both you and your mother? For as long as the son of Jesse is walking around free on this earth, your future in this kingdom is at risk. Now go get him. Bring him here. From this moment, he's as good as dead. Jonathan stood up to his father. Why dead? What's he done? Saul, through his spirit, him to kill him. That convinced Jonathan that his father was fixated on killing David. Jonathan stormed from the table, furiously angry, and ate nothing the rest of the day, upset for David and smarting under the humiliation from his father. In the morning, Jonathan went to the field for the appointment with David. He had his young servant with him. He told the servant, run and get the arrows. I'm about to shoot. The boy started running, and Jonathan shot an arrow way beyond him. As the boy came to the area where the arrow had been shot, Jonathan yelled out, isn't the arrow farther out? He yelled again, hurry, quickly. Don't just stand there. Jonathan's servant then picked up the arrow and brought it to his master. The boy, of course, knew nothing of what was going on. Only Jonathan and David knew. Jonathan gave his quiver and bow to the boy and sent him back to town. After the servant was gone, David got up from his hiding place beside the boulder, then fell on his face to the ground 3 times, prostrating himself. And then they kissed one another and wept, friend over friend, David weeping especially hard. Jonathan said, go in peace. The 2 of us have vowed friendship in God's name, saying God will be the bond between me and you and between my children and your children forever. 1 Samuel 21. David pretends to be crazy. David went on his way and Jonathan returned to town. David went to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech was alarmed as he went out to greet David. What are you doing here all by yourself and not a soul with you? David answered Ahimelech the priest, the king sent me on a mission and gave strict orders. There you go, lying again, David. This is top secret, not a word of this to a soul. I've arranged to meet up with my men in a certain place. Now, what's there here to eat? Do you have 5 loaves of bread? Give me whatever you can scrounge up. I don't have any regular bread on hand, said the priest. I only have holy bread. If your men have not slept with women recently, it's yours. David said, none of us has touched a woman. I always do it this way when I'm on a mission. My men abstain from sex. Even when it is an ordinary mission, we do that. How much more on this holy mission? So the priest gave them holy bread. It was the only bread he had, the bread of presence that had been removed from God's presence and replaced by fresh bread at the same time. One of Saul's officials was present that day, keeping a religious vow. His name was Doeg the Edomite. He was chief of Saul's shepherds. David asked Ahimelech, do you have here a spear or sword, any kind around here? I didn't have a chance to grab my weapons. The king's mission was urgent, and I left in a hurry. The priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine you killed at Oak Valley, that's here. It's behind the ephod wrapped in a cloth. If you want it, take it. There's nothing else here. Oh, said David, there's no sword like that. Give it to me. At that, David shot out of there, running for his life from Saul. He went to Achish, king of Gath. When the servants of Achish saw him, they said, can this be David, the famous David? Is this the one they sing of at their dances? Saul kills by the 1,000, David by the 10,000. When David realized that he had been recognized, he panicked, fearing the words from Achish, king of Gath. So right there, while they were looking at him, he pretended to go crazy, pounding his head on the city gate, foaming at the mouth, spit dripping from his beard. Achish took one look at him and said to his servants, can't you see he's crazy? Why did you let him in here? Don't you think I have enough crazy people to put up with as it is without adding another? Get him out of here. 1 Samuel chapter 22. Saul murders the priest of God, my Lord. So David got away and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and others associated with his family heard where he was, they came down and joined him. Not only that, but all who were down on their luck came around, losers and vagrants and misfits of all sorts. David became their leader. There were about 400 in all. Then David went to Mizpah in Moab. He petitioned the king of Moab, grant asylum to my father and mother until I find out what God has planned for me. David left his parents in the care of the king of Moab. They stayed there all through the time David was hiding out. So he took care of his mother and father. We don't hear a lot about David's mother, not a whole lot. The prophet Gad told David, don't go back to the cave, go to Judah. David did what he told him. He went to the forest of Hereth. Saul got word of the whereabouts of David and his men. He was sitting under the big oak on the hill at Gibeah at the time, spear in hand, holding court, surrounded by his officials. He said, listen here, you Benjamites. Don't think for a minute that you have any future with the son of David. Do you think he's going to hand over choice land, give you all the influential jobs? Think again. Here you are, conspiring against me, whispering behind my back. Not one of you is man enough to tell me that my own son is making deals with the son of Jesse. Not one of you who cares enough to tell me that my son is taking the side of this outlaw. Then Doeg the Edomite, who was standing with Saul's officials, spoke up. I saw the son of Jesse meet with Ahimelech, son of Ahutub, in Nob. I saw Ahimelech pray with him for God's guidance, give him food, and arm him with the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Saul sent for the priest Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, along with the whole family of priests at Nob. They all came to the king. Saul said, you listen to me, son of Ahitub. Certainly, master, he said. Why have you gained up against me with the son of Jesse, giving him bread and sword, even praying with him for God's guidance, setting him up as an outlaw, out to get me? Ahimelech answered the king, there's not an official in your administration as true to you as David, your own son-in-law and captain of your bodyguard. None more honorable either. Do you think that was the first time I prayed with him for God's guidance? Lord, the priest doesn't even know what's going on. David, you lied to the man, about to make the man lose his life because he thought he was helping somebody faithful. Jesus, help, Lord. Help the saints. Whew. Do you think that was the first time I prayed with him for God's guidance? You don't even know what you're getting yourself into, Ahimelech. Hardly, but don't accuse me of any wrongdoing, me or my family. I have no idea what you're trying to get at with this outlaw talk. The king said, death, Ahimelech, you're going to die, you and everyone in your family. The king ordered his henchmen, surround and kill the priests of God. They're hand in glove with David. They knew he was running away from me and didn't tell me. But the king's men wouldn't do it. They refused to lay a hand on the priests of God. Then the king told Doeg, you do it, massacre the priests. Doeg the Edomite. See, you got to watch these Edomites, you old devilish, evil, wicked, iniquitous Edomite. Doeg the Edomite led the attack and slaughtered the priests, the 85 men who wore sacred robes. He then carried the massacre into Nob, the city of priests, killing man and woman, child and baby, ox, donkey, and sheep, the works. Oh, evil thing, wretched thing. Only one son of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, escaped, Abiathar. He got away and joined up with David. Abiathar reported to David that Saul had murdered the priest of God. David said to Abiathar, I knew it. That day I saw Doeg the Edomite there, I knew he'd tell Saul, I'm to blame for the death of everyone in your father's family. That's right, because you lied, David. Stay here with me. Don't be afraid. The one out to kill you is out to kill me too. Stick with me. I'll protect you. 1 Samuel chapter 23, living in the desert hideouts. It was reported to David that the Philistines were raiding Keilah and looting the grain. David went in prayer to God. Should I go after these Philistines and teach them a lesson? God said, go attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said, we live in fear for our lives right here in Judah. How can you think of going to Keilah in the thick of the Philistines? So David went back to God in prayer. God said, get going, head for Keilah. I'm placing the Philistines in your hands. David and his men went to Keilah and fought the Philistines. He scattered their cattle, beat them decisively, and saved the people of Keilah. After Abiathar took refuge with David, he joined David in the raid on Keilah, bringing the ephod with him. Saul learned that David had gone to Keilah and thought immediately, good, God has handed him to me on a platter. He's in a walled city and locked gates, trapped. Saul mustered his troops for battle and set out for Keilah to lay siege to David and his men. But David got wind of Saul's strategy to destroy him and said to Abiathar the priest, get the ephod. Then David prayed to God, God of Israel, I've just learned that Saul plans to come to Keilah and destroy the city because of me. Will the city fathers of Keilah turn me over to him? Will Saul come down and do what I've heard? Oh God, God of Israel, tell me. God replied, he's coming down. And will the head of the men of Keilah turn me and my men over to Saul? And God said, they'll turn you over. So David and his men got out of there. There were about 600 of them. They left Keilah and kept moving, going here and there, wherever, always on the move. When Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he called off the raid. David continued to live in desert hideouts in the backcountry wilderness hills of Ziph. Saul was out looking for him day after day, but God never turned David over to him. David kept out of the way in the wilderness of Ziph, secluded at Horesh, since it was plain that Saul was determined to hunt him down. Jonathan, Saul's son, visited David at Horesh and encouraged him in God. He said, don't despair. My father Saul can't lay a hand on you. You will be kings. You will be Israel's king, and I'll be right at your side to help. And my father knows it. Then the two of them made a covenant before God. David stayed at Horesh, and Jonathan went home. Some Ziphites went to Saul at Gibeah and said, did you know that David is hiding out near us in the caves and canyons of Horesh? Right now, he's at Hakelah Hill, just south of Jeshimon. So whenever you're ready to come down, we count it an honor to hand him over to the king. Saul said, God bless you for thinking about me. Now go back and check everything out. Learn his routines, observe his movements, where he goes, who he's with. He's very shrewd, you know. Scout out all his hiding places. Then meet me at Nakon, and I'll go with you. If he is anywhere to be found in all the thousands of Judah, I'll track him down. So the Ziphites set out on their reconnaissance for Saul. Meanwhile, David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon in the desert south of Jeshimon. Saul and his men arrived and began their search. When David heard of it, he went south to Rock Mountain, camping out in the wilderness of Maon. Saul heard where he was and set off for the wilderness of Maon in pursuit. Saul was on one side of the mountain, David and his men on the other. David was in full retreat running, with Saul and his men closing in, about to get him. Just then a messenger came to Saul and said, hurry, come back. The Philistines have just attacked the country. So Saul called off his pursuit of David and went back to deal with the Philistines. That's how that place got the name Narrow Escape. David left there and camped out in the caves and canyons of En-Gedi. 1 Samuel 24, I'm no rebel. When Saul came back after dealing with the Philistines, he was told, David is now in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Saul took 3 companies, the best he could find in all Israel, to set out in search of David and his men in the region of Wild Goat Rocks. He came to some sheep pens along the road. There was a cave there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. David and his men were huddled far back in the same cave. David's men whispered to him, can you believe it? This is the day God was talking about when he said, I'll put your enemy in your hands. You can do whatever you want to him. Quiet as a cat, David crept up and cut off a piece of Saul's royal robe. Immediately he felt guilty. He said to his men, God forbid that I should have done this to my master, God's anointed. that I should so much as raise a finger against him. He's God's anointed. David held his men in check with these words and wouldn't let them pounce on Saul. Saul got up, left the cave, and went on down the road. Then David stood at the mouth of the cave and called to Saul, "My master, my king." Saul looked back. David fell to his knees and bowed in reverence. He called out, "Why do you listen to those who say David is out to get you? This very day with your very own eyes you've seen that just now in the cave God put you in my hands. My men wanted me to kill you, but I wouldn't do it. I told them that I won't lift a finger against my master. He's God's anointed. Oh, my father, look at this. Look at this piece that I cut from your robe. I could have cut you. I could have killed you, but I didn't. Look at the evidence. I'm not against you. I'm no rebel. I haven't sinned against you, and you're hunting me down to kill me. Let's decide which of us is in the right. God may avenge me, but it is in his hands, not mine." An old proverb says, evil deeds come from evil people. So be assured that my hand won't touch you. What does the king of Israel think he's doing? Who do you think you are chasing? A dead dog, a flea? God is our judge. He'll decide who is right. Or that he would look down right now and decide right now and set me free of you. When David had finished saying all this, Saul said, "Can this be the voice of my son David? You old devil, you." Split personality. And he wept in loud sobs. "You're the one in the right, not me," he continued. "You've heaped good on me. I've done evil on you, and now you've done it again. Treated me generously. God put me in your hands, and you didn't kill me. Why? When a man meets his enemy, does he send him off down the road with a blessing? May God give you a bonus blessings for what you've done for me today. I know now beyond a doubt that you will rule as king. The kingdom of Israel is already in your grasp. Now promise me under God that you will not kill off my family and wipe my name off the books." David promised, and Saul went home, and David and his men went up to their wilderness refuge. 1 Samuel 25, to fight God's battles. Samuel died. The whole country came to his funeral. Everyone grieved over his death, and he was buried in his hometown of Ramah. Meanwhile, David moved again, and this time into the wilderness of Maon. There was a certain man in Maon who carried on his business in the region of Carmel. He was very prosperous, 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it was sheep shearing time in Carmel. The man's name was Nabal, a fool, what that means, a Calebite, and his wife's name was Abigail. The woman was intelligent and good looking, the man brutish and mean. David out in the back country heard that Nabal was shearing the sheep and sent 10 of his young men off with these instructions. "Go to Carmel and approach Nabal. Greet him in my name. Peace, life, and peace to you. Peace to your household. Peace to everyone here. I heard that it's sheep shearing time. Here's the point. When your shepherds were camping near us, we didn't take advantage of them. They didn't loose a thing all the time they were there with us in Carmel. Ask your young men. They'll tell you. What I'm asking is that you be generous with my men. Share the feast. Give whatever your heart tells you to your servants and to me, David, your son." David's young men went and delivered this message, his message word for word to Nabal. Nabal tore into them. "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? The country is full of runaway servants these days. Do you think I'm going to take good bread and wine and meat and freshly butchered for my sheep shearers and give it to the men I've never laid eyes on? Who knows where they've come from?" David's men got out of there and went back and told David what he had said. David said, "Strap up your swords." They all strapped on their swords. David and his men set out, 400 of them. 200 stayed behind to guard the camp. Meanwhile, one of the young shepherds told Abigail, Nabal's wife, what had happened. "David sent messengers from the back country to salute our master, but he tore into them with insults. Yet these men treated us very well. They took nothing from us and didn't take advantage of us all the time we were in the fields. They formed a wall around us, protecting us day and night all the time we were out tending the sheep. Do something quickly, because big trouble is ahead for our master and all of us. Nobody can talk to him. He's impossible, a real brute." Abigail flew into action. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep dressed out and ready for cooking, a bushel of roasted grain, 100 raisin cakes, and 200 fig cakes, and she had it all loaded on some donkeys. Then she said to her young servants, "Go ahead and pave the way for me. I'm right behind you." But she said nothing to her husband Nabal. As she was riding her donkey descending into a ravine, David and his men were descending from the other end so that they met there on the road. David had just said, "That sure was a waste, guarding everything that this man had out in the wild so that nothing he had was lost. Now he rewards me with insults." A real slap in the face. May God do his worst to me if Nabal and every cur and his misbegotten brood aren't dead meat by morning. I felt that anger. As soon as Abigail saw David, she got off her donkey and fell on her knees at his feet, her face to the ground in homage, saying, "My master, let me take the blame. Let me speak to you. Listen to what I have to say. Don't dwell on what that brute Nabal did. He acts out of the meaning of his name. Nabal, fool. Foolishness oozed from him. I wasn't there when the young men my master sent arrived. I didn't see them. And now my master, as God lives and as you live, God has kept you from this avenging murder. And may your enemies, all who seek my master's harm, end up like Nabal. Now take this gift that I, your servant girl, have brought to my master and give it to the young men who follow the steps of my master. Forgive my presumption, but God is at work in my master, developing a rule solid and dependable. My master fights God's battles as long as you live. No evil will stick to you. If anyone stands in your way, if anyone tries to get you out of the way, know this, your God-honored life is tightly bound in the bundle of God-protected life. But the lives of your enemies will be hurled aside as a stone is thrown from a sling. When God completes all the goodness he has promised my master and sets you up as prince over Israel, my master will not have this dead weight in his heart, the guilt of an avenging murder. And when God has worked things for good, my master, remember me. And David said, blessed be God, the God of Israel. He sent you to meet me. And blessed be your good sense. Bless you for keeping me from murder and taking charge of looking out for me. Close call. As God lives, God of Israel, who kept me from hurting you, if you had not come quickly as you did, stopping me in my tracks, by morning there would have been nothing left of Nabal but dead meat. And David accepted the gift she brought him and said, return home in peace. I've heard what you said, and I'll do what you ask. When Abigail got home, she found Nabal presiding over a huge banquet. He was in high spirits and very, very drunk. So she didn't tell him anything of what she'd done until morning. But in the morning, after Nabal had sobered up, she told him the whole story. Right then and there, he had a heart attack and fell into a coma. About 10 days later, God finished him off and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be God who has stood up for me against Nabal's insults, kept me from an evil act, and let Nabal's evil boomerang back on him. Then David sent for Abigail to tell her that he wanted her for his wife. David's servants went to Abigail at Carmel with the message, David sent us to bring you to marry him. She got up, then bowed down, face to the ground, saying, I'm your servant, ready to do anything you want. I'll even wash the feet of my master's servants. I wonder. Okay. Abigail didn't linger. I guess not. She got on her donkey and with her 5 maids in attendance went with messengers to David and became his wife. I see now. David also married Ahinoam of Jezreel. Ain't that nothing? Both women were his wives. Saul had married off David's wife Michal to Palti, another word for Paltiel, son of Laish, who was from Galim. Well, this is the word of the Lord.